Welcome into 49ers Access. My name is Sterling Bennett, and today is the day we are giving out my 2025 San Francisco 49ers NFL draft grade. It's going to go all the way from round 1, 11 picks later to the end of round 7. Hand out A pluses, B minuses, and maybe even an F along the way. So stay tuned. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe. Leave us that 5-star audio podcast review, and let's dive into my San Francisco 49ers 2025 NFL draft grades right here on 49ers Access. Starting off in round number 1 with edge rusher out of Georgia, Kyle Williams. And I think while you can certainly make the argument that San Francisco should have gone Walter Nolan here, should have gone Shamar Stewart, James Pierce Jr., Mike Green, who went all the way in round number 3 to the Baltimore Ravens. Maybe you make a pitch for Jalen Walker, who went to the Falcons a couple picks later. I think San Francisco did a great job in round number 1. You can tell there was an effort to find an edge rusher early in this year's draft class. He is, as of this point, the second highest drafted edge rusher ever by San Francisco in this regime's history. The first being Nick Bosa, number 2 overall in 2019. Kyle Williams at pick number 11. To me, it's not a home run, but to me, it's a solid double out of the gate. Start that rally for you and kick things off in a big way in this year's draft class. I know, again, you can argue maybe the upside as a pass rusher really isn't there yet, but with his ability on day 1 to have length, to play with leverage, have immense power, and like John Lynch said, stop the run, set the hard edge, hold and contain running backs, mobile quarterbacks, ball carriers. San Francisco hasn't had that since Clelin Ferrell in 2023, but even then he got hurt halfway through the season. They went and got Chase Young. They went and got Randy Gregory. None of that planned out for them. So I think Kyle on day 1 gives you something that the other guys don't do. Shamar Stewart doesn't do it. Pierce, Green, none of the other edge rushers get it done the way Kyle can. And I do think there is some upside there as a pass rusher. He himself said in his post-draft press conference that, look, I know what I can do. I also know where I need to get some help at. And he said himself, I have to have a better pass rush plan. That's where you introduce Robert Saleh and Chris Kosarek. Work with him. He's 20 years old. He's super young. He has a higher floor than guys, to me, than James Pierce Jr. and Mike Green and even Jalen Walker and Shamar Stewart, where you are having a safer player at pick 11 overall, but also you are leaving a lot of room for growth. He isn't a project. Even if he doesn't reach that high-end potential to be a pass rusher, you're getting a really good run-defending edge rusher, which every team needs, which there is room where he doesn't become the A-plus guy, but I think on day 1 he can be a B-plus for you. That's the grade he gets from me. I picked number 11 overall in the first round. I think amongst the guys on the board, even including Walter Nolan and Jalen Walker, I think Kyle Williams is set to be, amongst that grouping, the only 3-down player in year 1. That's a big ask for a rookie, but I think the way he plays, his style of play, he can play inside, he can play outside. The other guys can't do that. Kyle can. And that's a big difference in how you decide to pick people, pick players where, again, the upside as a pass rusher may not be there, but on day 1, if he can play first, second, and third down for you, help you get into third and longs, and then go inside and rush the quarterback and attack guards and centers, you have a really good player to help you out on day 1 to improve your defense. So I'm not going to be an A grade because, again, there is a lot of growth that has to be had as a pass rusher, but I think on day 1, he's one of the more complete prospects that I think can grow into a really good pass rusher at the NFL level. He gets a B+ because that floor is so high where even if he doesn't reach that ceiling as a pass rusher, he can still be a quality NFL player for you for a long time. And I don't think anybody's going to walk away saying, oh, that was a bad pick. You're going to say, maybe didn't reach the ceiling, but overall a pretty good player for you for the next 5 years in San Francisco. So I think it's a good pick. It is a good rally starter in the first round, and it only gets better from here in round 2 for San Francisco, because pick number 11, pick 43 in round number 2, San Francisco moved from the outside of the defensive line into the interior with Alfred Collins, defensive tackle out of Texas. And when I tell you, I was shocked that this was the pick, not because of who the player is, but simply because I didn't think he'd still be there for San Francisco. There was some talk he'd be, maybe inside the top 5 picks of day 2. Some even mock drafts had him coming into round number 1. I think that was a little overzealous of some people out there, but San Francisco walked into this draft class with a very bare bones defensive line. And with their first 2 picks, you can argue that they hammered and attacked their biggest weakness the past couple of years, and knowing what the defensive line they had was going to be a big weakness for them if they didn't add to it, and that is run defense. You got, in your first 2 picks, tremendous run defenders, and I can argue that Alfred Collins and Micah Williams may be the best run defensive players at their positions in this year's draft class. That goes a long way. I'm giving the Alfred Collins pick an A. I think it brings Micah Williams home. It scores a run. It's the first run on the board. You say, okay, San Francisco is cooking. And look, similar to Williams, I don't think Collins has this immense pass rushing upside. I think it's there. I think that you're drafting him to be probably a first and second down player for you compared to a 3-down player for you, like Micah Williams can be. At least I hope he can at the NFL level. I think Collins projects to be a first and second down player, a base down player, get you into more manageable third downs, stop the run, force some pressure on the quarterback on the interior at early passing downs, and help a defense set themselves up for a third and long, where I think Mikel can get you to third and long and then bring it home on third and long. I think Alfred Collins is there to have high effort, a high motor, be good in the red zone, and just stop running backs. Kyron Williams, James Conner, Kenneth Walker III, all the draft picks those teams made this year on the offensive line, Gray Zabel. A lot of teams want to begin, or at least are trying to reinvigorate their offense on the ground. Alfred Collins is the answer to San Francisco, or for San Francisco to respond to how teams are drafting. But you bring in a defensive line now of Nick Bosa, Williams, and Collins. Teams are saying, oh, crap, it's going to be a long, grueling first and second down for us, where you're going to have teams in a less manageable third down situation, knowing Collins is on the interior, moving around guys. He's lengthy, he's heavy, he's a guy who's 300-plus pounds, and he wants to move guys, plays with power. San Francisco, and it's a big one here because today on The Athletic, or for The Athletic, Matt Barrows talked to McLaughlin, who used to be in San Francisco's GM, or McLaughlin, whatever his name was. And he said that San Francisco got disruptors. Sacks aren't everything. And I think San Francisco did exactly what was said. They got disruptors. Guys didn't have 10-plus sacks, 15-plus sacks. They weren't the most productive pass rushers, but they got run defensive guys that can be disruptive in the pocket. It's a big deal for them. Alfred Collins gets an A grade for me. Moving along to arguably the most controversial pick of this draft for San Francisco, round number 3, their first third-round pick, and that is linebacker Nick Martin with pick 75 from Oklahoma State. And when I tell you, this to me is their worst graded pick of the entire draft. It may not be because I don't dislike the player. I really do like Nick Martin. I think Nick Martin can play at the NFL level. However, there is some length issues, not clogging passing lanes in coverage, coming off a knee injury. Although he's healthy, I do think this draft pick is head-scratching, knowing that at least the way the board fell after him and before him, there was no linebackers coming off the board. In round 2, it was Carson Schlesinger. The first pick with the Browns on day 2. The next linebacker to go was Nicholas Martin at pick number 11, pick 75 in round number 3. Sandwiched in between there was players like Demetrius Knight, but that was about, 20 picks earlier in the day. So at pick 17, 49 in round number 2. So again, a big gap in between linebackers. There wasn't a race to get those guys on your team. In front of him was Azaria Thomas, Landon Jackson, Vernon Broughton, Kyle Williams, Harold Fannin Jr., Darius Alexander. After, you can justify this pick if afterwards there was a big, long run on linebackers, and there simply wasn't. The next linebacker taken in this year's draft after Nicholas Martin at pick number 75 in round number 3, if you go all the way down to pick 107, to the Jacksonville Jaguars, Jack Kaiser. So again, it was a massive reach by the consensus. I think it's a massive reach for myself. I'm giving this grade, which is not indicative of the player. It is not a player's fault where teams draft them. That's not what I'm doing here. So I think Nicholas Martin can play. But at pick 75 in round number 3, when you didn't get an offensive tackle, you got burned by the Raiders at pick 98 and 99, taking tackles back-to-back. Could have had one here. Could have found maybe a better cornerback. Jacob Parrish was there. I would have rather had that than Nicholas Martin at pick 75. So I'm giving this one a very staunch D+. I do want to clarify this. I like Nicholas Martin. I think he has the speed. He has the athleticism. However, the positional value was not there at pick 75. This was Robert Saleh's 3rd round running back. And clearly, whether it was Saleh himself or Johnny Holland, somebody in that room loved Nicholas Martin. And you are essentially telling the fan base, your team, this is your Dre Greenlaw replacement. Now, we'll see if that comes to be in the future, but that's a lot of pressure to put on a player with the fan base saying, really? You didn't get a tackle? And now you're putting added on pressure saying he better be a hit. Because if Brock Purdy gets hurt, or Trent Williams goes down, or Jake Brendel sucks, or Cole McKivitz gets hurt, or he also stinks, a lot of questions are going to be had as to what this pick could have been. But I do think Nicholas Martin can actually be a player for you on and in year 1. Not a starter to me. I think he's a much better blitzer, run defender, tackler, a player to clean up some plays for you. He doesn't miss tackles. He's explosive. He gets takeaways. He had 6 sacks 2 years ago. 60 defensive run stops. That means plays that are negative yards or just 0 yards. Again, he can play. I just don't love this pick. I wish you could have got him later in the draft. Had Nicholas Martin gone, let's say in round 5, in round 7, in round 6, maybe even late round 4, I would have said, okay, that's fine. That's a fine pick, and it'd probably be a C+ or maybe a flat C. Maybe round 7, it's a B. I like Nicholas Martin, but here in round 3 at pick 75, I cannot get behind this being anything more than a D+. I hope I'm wrong. I hope San Francisco proves this grade to be a sham in the next couple of years or so, but a lot of eyes, not just mine, not just yours, a lot of eyes are going to be on Nicholas Martin to see if he can become the next stud linebacker. He is this team's 2nd highest drafted linebacker of the regime. When you do that, pressure gets put on you. Same thing with Micah Williams and Ricky Pearsall last year. When you become the 2nd highest drafted in his 1st round, 3rd round, 2nd round, compared to all pro players who were in front of you, can you replace those guys? Can you become the next big thing? I have to give Nicholas Martin's draft grade a D+ for San Francisco. Like the player, just not the draft position. Moving along into the end of round number 3, pick 100. And this is where I think San Francisco's draft grade props right back up where they lost you. At Nicholas Martin, we all said, okay, maybe that'll work out. Upton Stout, nickelback / safety out of Western Kentucky, to me, gets a B minus. There were some people pushing back on this, but the board was falling in a way where San Francisco felt like, hey, there's not many nickelbacks on the open market still in this draft class. Jacob Parrish had gone. No Williams went to Kansas City. Caleb Ramsaw had gone. Who else had gone? Jalen Smith had gone. About 5 cornerbacks had just gone in front of San Francisco in between pick 75 and pick 100. They said, hey, if we don't get a nickelback here, we ain't getting one at all. And while I do think Upton Stout's probably not projected to be a cornerback starter in year one, you have Lenore, you have Renardo Green, you have Trey Brown. This seems to be, and I believe what John Lynch or Kyle Shanahan said was, they want Lenore not playing nickel at all next year. They want him on the outside, on the boundary, locking top dudes down. Upton Stout gives you that. He's a feisty dude. He can play free safety, nickel back. He does kind of give you the speed you want. He's a player that can make good tackles at the line of scrimmage, a good run defender. He's a shorter guy. He's not going to give you too much of length to knock down batted passes. Probably wouldn't want him going against, bigger Juwan Jennings size slot receivers, but he fits what they like at cornerback and nickelback. I like this move. I think he can be a starter for you in year one. But I also believe he's one of those players that doesn't start the year as a top 3 guy on your roster in your depth chart, but game 4, game 5, as soon as you start to see signs of Trey Brown struggling or somebody goes hurt, he instantly becomes the top nickelback behind Lenore or behind Renardo Green. And the great thing about this is he gives you now 3 cornerbacks, Green, Lenore, and Stout, that can all play outside of nickel. So Saleh loves versatility, moving guys around, kind of finding matchups for defenses. Upton Stout gives you that, and I like this pick a lot. He gets a B- from me. I'm sure a lot of you out there said, who? I think this may be one more of these small moves where we say, who is that guy? And they're great. Last year it was Renardo Green, Dominic Pooney, Malik Mustafa. I think this year it may be Upton Stout, nickelback from Western Kentucky, getting a B- in this class. The 3rd lowest grade, but back up in the Bs for San Francisco thus far. Moving on to day number 3 of the NFL draft, and where San Francisco may have lost you on day 2, especially later after Alfred Collins got picked, I think they swung back up in a big way on day 3 with their first pick, that being CJ West, defensive tackle out of Indiana. He gets the highest grade of my entire draft class for San Francisco, and I'm giving this an A+. I think this was the steal of San Francisco's draft class. I think teams are looking at San Francisco's defense and saying, oh my God, if all these guys work out, Williams, Collins, West, we are not running for a single yard on these teams. You're going to see constant 3rd and 7s, 3rd and 6, 3rd and 8s. You're going to see teams saying, we cannot run in between the tackles if all 3 of those guys are out there. Haven't even mentioned Nick Bosa yet, right? It makes everything easier for you. And the reason why I'm giving this an A+ compared to Alfred Collins' A- or A is because I think CJ West actually has a higher pass rushing upside compared to Collins. I think there is a world where you see CJ West become the star of this draft. Yes, he has a DJ Jones pro comp. He's cheaper, he's younger, he's faster, he's quicker, he's stronger currently now. But like that bowling ball style defensive tackle, I do think there is growth in a room where you can say in the end of his rookie contract that he's a better player than Alfred Collins. And I would not be shocked to watch that happen. I think he's a star. I think he's a stud. I think he can be everything San Francisco needs. He can take on double teams. He can beat double teams. He's relentless. And also, like Williams and like Collins, plays with power. Is that disruptor. San Francisco, I think, aced this draft on the defensive line. If you wanted to utilize this A+ pick for TJ West and say, hey, I think if you combined Michael and Alfred Collins in a group pick, their defensive line gets an A+ in this draft for me. And CJ West is the highest graded draft pick in this class for myself this year because I think he has so much potential. I think he's awesome. When your shirts and your Instagram profile say "I hate quarterbacks," that to me gives a clear intention as to what you are as an NFL player. You mean business, you play mean, you play angry, and the tape shows it from Indiana. Play in, play out. He has, I think, an ability to be a top dog at the NFL level on the defensive line. Again, third round or fourth round pick, day 3 player. I think there's a lot of untapped potential there, and I think he went to a really good place to unlock that with Kocurek and Robert Saleh. A little more projection with him when it comes to his draft grade, but I think he can get there when it's all said and done. Before we go to our first offensive draft grade in this year's draft class, I want to pause for 1 second to remind you, if you want to find MLB tickets, NBA playoff tickets, pre-order NFL tickets, schedule comes out in the next couple weeks or so, go to SeatGeek.com and save yourself $20 off your first purchase by using promo code 49ers Access. 49 ERSACCESS at SeatGeek.com and save yourself $20 off your first purchase. Moving along here on the show, sticking on day number 3 for San Francisco. Finally, they handed the keys over to Kyle Shanahan for the first time in this year's draft class. Their first 5 picks were defensive players for the first time since 1981. That's insane. That's crazy. But when you do that, who is the first offensive player you're going to take becomes a big question. Do you end the run with a home run, a single, or a strikeout? And I'm here to tell you, I like the pick of Jordan Watkins at pick overall 138 on day 3. Yes, he wasn't the biggest receiver. Yes, he wasn't the best receiver on the board currently, but to justify this pick, I think it's pretty easy. In front of San Francisco and in between their last pick at CJ West and Jordan Watkins, you had players like wide receivers Jalen Lane go to the Commanders. You had Jalen Royals go to the Chiefs. Alec Omanor go to the Tennessee Titans. And you had San Francisco sitting there saying, hey, if we don't get a slot receiver, if we don't get the guy that can play inside and outside, has 4.3 speed, we are not getting a burner. And yes, you can say, well, Danny Gray was overdrafted in the 3rd round and Dante Pettis wasn't good. And all that is true. All that is true. But Jordan Watkins at pick 138 is really good value. The draft pick made sense. The board was not following San Francisco's way. They said, hey, if we don't get one of these guys, we're never getting one of these guys this year, knowing that Ayuk's going to be out for probably the first couple months of the season. Demarcus Robinson's probably going to get popped for a suspension, 1 to 3 games. It may pay to have somebody else in that room who can play the inside, can play the outside, and theoretically speaking, in the future, maybe if you want to trade Brandon Ayuk, Jordan Watkins can play the X-wide receiver position in the future for you. So there's a lot of ways to justify the pick, the board, the injuries, the future. A lot of it makes sense to draft Jordan Watkins here. The good thing about this is, yes, 4.3 speed can get downfield. He will stretch and open the field for guys like Pearsall and Kittle and McCaffrey, Jordan James, Isaac Arendo, Juwan Jennings, Demarcus Robinson once he's back from a suspension. However, the big difference here is that he's not just a guy that gets downfield and he has bad hands. A better contested catch rate than number 10 overall pick this past year, Colson Loveland. That's a big deal. It is really hard to catch balls that are at a 56.6% clip when they are contested catches. That is Jordan Watkins' rate. That's a really good rate on balls downfield. Catches over 50% of his passes, 20 plus yards downfield. Had 8 total catches on such passes at Ole Miss. He had 5 last year alone, so he can get downfield. He has good hands. He can go up and get it, and he should be able to be a contributor on day one. Now, yes, with all that said, there is an underlying dark cloud that follows every single San Francisco 49er wide receiver when they're drafted. That is called Shanahan's doghouse. There is a place, there is a time where you may see Jordan Watkins in that doghouse in year one. Sometimes the speed isn't always translatable every single play. Sometimes the routes aren't as crisp as you want. The effort may be a question here or there, but I think after a short stint in the doghouse, maybe after Ayuk and after Robinson come back from the injury and suspension, I think Jordan Watkins can play for you, be a contributor for you. And a running theme in this year's class was SEC proven talents. He was proven. Ole Miss, Jackson Dart, Trey Harris goes down. Who steps up? Jordan Watkins. Micah Williams out of Georgia. You had Alfred Collins out of Texas. A lot of guys, proven SEC talents, guys who go to playoff games, win big games. Jordan Watkins was a pretty clutch player for Ole Miss last year, so I like the pick. I don't love it. Again, a lot of my complaints are you didn't get a tackle, you didn't go get a pass rusher on your defensive line. You love West, you love Collins, you love Michael Williams, but there were some players still there that could have been taken here. But I like the pick. I'm giving it a C+. I think it's a pretty good grade for him. It leaves some wiggle room for some success and some failure for Jordan Watkins, but I like the pick. It's a C+ for me. I think most fans are okay with that. I haven't seen too many push back. Some say receiver, really? I would say receiver, why not? These are guys you take a chance on, hope it pays off. So it's a C+. I don't love it, but I certainly do not hate it whatsoever. And the next pick for San Francisco, moving on to the running back position. This is one of those picks where in my head, initially I was like, I wanted somebody else at running back. But reading into it, knowing Jordan James at pick 147 in round number 5, it's really hard to dislike this pick if you're a Niner fan because you trade away Jordan Mason. Guerendo has the injury history. He's more of that receiver. CMC has the injury history. He can be kind of your every down back for you. But a lot of those guys are outside zone players only, mainly Isaac Guerendo. Jordan James is that no fumbling, no BS, good contact balance, inside zone runner that San Francisco desperately needs to alleviate pressure off of Christian McCaffrey, especially due to the injuries, but also Guerendo, who is the outside zone guy, boomer bust player. Jordan James is that more consistent, level-headed, good vision, sees a lane and goes type of guy. And also, he really helps you in the red zone. 15 touchdowns in the red zone this past year at Oregon. That means every single touchdown he got last year was in the red zone. They call it the red zone for a reason. When he gets inside the 20, he sees red. He turns it on. There's a new switch. He says, you're not going to stop me getting into the end zone. I like the pick. I think it's a B for them. Would I have loved players like DJ Giddens? Could you pitch me on the idea of maybe Marcus Bowe, who went to the Giants? You can maybe get into the conversation of, hey, Nicholas Martin went way earlier. Jeffrey Bassett goes after Jordan James at pick 156. Well, there's that. Elijah Roberts goes here. There are some players I think maybe you could have grabbed here instead, but a lot of the complaints stem from more of Nicholas Martin's pick compared to Jordan James's pick all the way in round 5. I like the pick. It's a solid B for me in round number 5. And that brings things back to the defense for San Francisco at pick 160. That is Marquise Siegel, safety, cornerback hybrid from Kansas State. And this, again, is one of those picks where you say, okay, clearly, Saleh and Hankerson, or not Hankerson, but Saleh has a type. Saleh likes feisty, undersized, speedy, quick cornerbacks that don't mind playing in the box, playing near the line of scrimmage, and just wreaking havoc on nickelbacks and blitzing from the nickelback position. But also in Siegel's case, you can go back and play free safety and give San Francisco something they haven't had. He has speed. San Francisco has not had a roaming free safety since Jimmy Ward. And even then, Jimmy in the later part of his career was playing nickelback in his last year in San Francisco. He didn't want to do that, left for Houston a couple years ago. San Francisco tried to band-aid it with Deshaun Gibson, who was pretty good in his time in the red and gold, but also Jair Brown was back there. But Jair Brown is more of a quote-unquote strong safety type, play in the box, wreak some havoc, hence why he paired really well with Deshaun Gibson. Now you have Mustafa, who I know is hurt now, which may make the pick a grade higher to you out there. I think it's a flat C. You don't love it. You don't hate it. I think it's a worse pick than Jordan Watkins. I think Siegel's not going to be a day one player for you. He's got speed. It'll be interesting to see how he's utilized. I do think there is a future where he becomes your backup nickelback compared to maybe your starting free safety. I do want to see him play at OTAs and minicamp and preseason first because I think there's a high ladder for him to climb. He has to beat out Richie Grant, George Odom, Pinnock, Mustafa, Jair Brown. That's 5 to 6 safeties. You got Siren Neal, Upton Stout, Lenore, and Green, and Darrell Luter Jr., and Trey Brown. He's a really, really high ladder to climb. I don't think he reaches that in year one, and he really hasn't had a lot of special teams snaps the last couple of years at Kansas State. So there's some questions, but if he reaches the potential, it's a good pick overall for San Francisco. They don't mind playing guys in round 5. Lenore was a round 5 pick. DJ Jones was round 6. Kittle and Greenlaw round 5. So they hit in this round on day 3. So I can see it being a hit for them. But again, there are some picks here on the board. You may say, hey, that makes some more sense. Mitchell Evans, tight end. Torrey Horton, receiver. Again, going back to the offensive line for a second. Jackson Slater, Drew Kendall, Miles Frazier, linebacker Chris Paul, who went to the Rams. Like, there are some picks here where you say, hey, you would rather have probably on and in year one, Jackson Slater and Drew Kendall on your offensive line. So that's kind of where the bigger complaint comes in. Again, higher rated players. I wouldn't say it's a reach, but I also wouldn't say that it's a guy you had to have here. Take a chance for sure. I get it. But I think I'd rather have a player like Jackson Slater, Drew Kendall on the offensive line, help you out in a big way. But again, I don't love it. I don't hate it. It's a C. It passes. There's room to grow. Again, I don't think there's too much of a risk as to him failing, but I do like Marquise Siegel. He's a good guy, team captain for Kansas State. So a lot to like from a person. He's a locker room guy. You like having those guys around, especially on day 5. He's a high-end athlete too, so you don't mind taking the chance on those players at pick 160. The next pick, though, for me is one of the more contentious on the day for the 49ers of the weekend, because at pick 227, they don't make a move in that big stretch. Almost 70 picks later, from 160 to pick 227, they go Curtis Rourke, quarterback out of Indiana. And look, I like Curtis Rourke. He does everything Shanahan likes from his quarterbacks. He has pocket awareness. He has pocket presence. Played through multiple injuries at Indiana. He's a dog. He's in the huddle. He can run play action. He's probably one of the best touch passers of the entire class. And this pick is probably jaded because you signed Mac Jones to a 2-year deal. You have Tanner Mordecai. You're going to sign Brock Purdy to the next 4 or 5-year deal, whatever he gets this offseason. Do you really need that 25, 26-year-old coming off an injury where he's not going to be ready till training camp, if not afterwards? Stash pick around 7? Maybe, maybe not. He probably would have gone around 6 or 5 had he been healthy. I think he's one of the better quarterbacks in this year's class. However, I just don't love this pick. I think there are players on the board that San Francisco didn't take. They could have. The very next pick was a running back, albeit you already got one earlier, but I'd rather have Brashard Smith and Curtis Rourke. you can maybe even pitch me on people like Kyle Manungai. How about a player they didn't take? Willie Lampkin, Zeke Biggers, like a lot of players here. I'm like, well, those guys could really help you. Could be a player for you, or at least give you much needed depth. Where in Curtis Rourke's case, it's like, yeah, there's quarterback 2 potential, but you're going to have to wait maybe until year 3 to see it once Mac Jones is a free agent. And on top of that, he isn't healthy. He's torn his ACL in his right knee twice. Broken thumb last year. I just don't love the idea of banking and risking picks on guys who have not 1 but 2 torn ACLs, are often injured, or older prospects. Like, by the time he actually sees maybe an NFL regular season game, he'll be 27, 28 years old. This is like Brandon Weeden territory of old. Again, he's only 25, 26 now, so we'll see what happens. And San Francisco has been known to need 3 quarterbacks in a year, but if you aren't going to improve the offensive line, why would you then hand the keys over to the franchise for at least a week or so if guys in front of him get hurt? With the guy who has 2 torn ACLs, durability is an issue. I don't care how much you played through it in college. These are bigger, faster, stronger dudes on defense. One hit and it's gonzo. So I don't love this pick. It gets my second lowest grade of the draft class, C-. I like Curtis Rourke, but it just didn't make sense to me. Look, quarterback, it's an important position, the most important in the entire sport. He does what Kyle likes, but even Max Brosmer from Minnesota did that too. He was undrafted. So I think there is better picks here on the board, but I digress. Moving along to a pretty good pick, in my opinion. Offensive lineman, mainly a guard, out of Iowa, Connor Colby, in round 7, the second of San Francisco's 3 7th-round picks at 249. And when this pick came on the board, Niner fans jumped up and said, finally, offensive line. Then they said, why'd you wait so long? Who's Connor Colby? And I'm here to tell you that Connor Colby is a really good player out of Iowa. They run the wide zone system. Connor Colby, albeit doesn't have much pass protection snaps in his college career, he is one of the best wide zone run defenders, run blockers in the college football level. He was the 8th ranked PFF zone run blocker in this draft class. That's a pretty good place to be for a 49er offensive lineman. Again, there were some guys that didn't fit their scheme at guard, guys who maybe aren't as athletic as Shanahan liked. So Connor Colby fits that mold. It's a good pick in round 7. There really isn't much more to say, but when they ran behind Connor Colby, center guard position, they were eating all day long at Iowa. So it's a good pick for them. I like the pick overall. I think in year 1, he can be your backup right guard. Maybe in a year or 2 goes to left guard, or maybe even this year. If Ben Barch goes down, or Burford has to go to left tackle for whatever reason, or Matt Hennessy fails and gets cut, Connor Colby, to me, I think can be a legitimate starter at the NFL level. But in year 1, maybe in year 2, he's going to be a depth guy for you, give you some cushion in case somebody else goes down. But I like the pick. Again, round 7's a really hard place to complain because you're really just throwing darts. Like, what's like the one place we need here? High-end athlete, guy that kind of fits our offense, our defense a lot. So it's a good pick. It's a solid B from me. Makes sense. It doesn't justify waiting so long to take an offensive lineman, but if you're going to wait so long, Connor Colby's the guy you want to get, I think. Again, fitting that wide zone, running offense. Shanahan loves to run at Iowa. He was a big reason as to why Caleb Johnson was so good at Iowa this past season. And moving along to the final pick in this year's draft class for San Francisco, pick 252 in round number 7. And look, Saleh had his fun. Got the first 5 picks, sprinkled in Marquise Siegel. Then Shanahan got his guys, Jordan Watkins, Jordan James, Curtis Rourke, Connor Colby. They turned to the third coach, Brant Boyer, and said, hey, Do you want to make a pick here? We may need some special teams help this season. You brought in plenty of free agents. Richie Grant, Pinnock, Siren Neal. You brought in Luke Farrell. Like, you brought in legitimate special teams players for you in free agency to help improve what was one of the worst units we have ever seen in San Francisco on special teams. Brant Boyer comes in and is hoping to revitalize that unit and lift the floor of the team as a whole to maybe a couple more wins in 2025. But this was his pick, clear as day, and it was wide receiver, mainly kick/punt returner out of Montana, Junior Burgeon. And I get this pick. I understand this pick. He was the best return man in all of college football last year. 8 touchdowns as a return man on punts his entire collegiate career. Had a couple last season. He was the highest graded return man in all of college last year with the FCS and FBS included. It makes sense. It's your last pick in the draft. Throw a dart. Get a guy where you say, hey, we have new kick return rules. We've been burned by punts. Kyle Williams, McLeod, Darrell Luter Jr. in the Super Bowl a couple years back. Let's get a sure-handed guy that's explosive. He can run with the ball in his hands. He can make plays in open field and also get us touchdowns as a return man and make a team that hasn't been dangerous on special teams maybe since Ted Ginn Jr. in the Harbaugh era. But even then, Ted Ginn spent a lot of his time running back and forth. He's weaving and kind of running around. It's like, well, now you get a guy that can run straight, can cut, and all this stuff. So, again, it's round 7. It's a guy who his NFL career is only going to be this one aspect. He's going to give you almost nothing as a wide receiver, but as a return man, you got the best one. So I gave it a C. Again, if he fails there, there's no harm. There's no loss. But also, like, of the guys you say that player is one you don't mind taking a chance on in round 7, I think Junior Burgeon is a better pick than Curtis Rourke. Not by much. Rourke got a C-. Burgeon gets a C. It's like a little grade up. It's a boop, boop. So it's one little boop up. But I think it's a good pick. Take a chance. Get him in camp. Try to alleviate having to utilize Deebo Samuel and Isaac Guerrero as your return men. Have guys that are your receiver 7 that sit there and say, hey, I can't do much more, but when I get the ball in my hands, I can change a game. And I think Burgeon can be that for you. He was at Montana. Hopefully it maintains that success at the NFL level. And that does it for San Francisco's 2025 NFL draft grades. I will say them all again for you. In round 1, Kyle Williams gets a B+. Alfred Collins in round 2 gets an A. Nicholas Martin gets the lowest grade of the class at a D+. Upton Stout in this year's class gets a B-. CJ West gets an A+, the highest grade of the entire class. Jordan Watkins gets a C+. Jordan James gets a B. Marquise Eagle gets a C. Curtis Rourke gets that C-. Connor Colby gets a B. And Junior Burgeon gets a C. So some really high highs, A+, A, B+ grades, and some really low lows, a D+ being our lowest grade of the show, of the draft class as a whole. But I think overall, San Francisco walked away with a solid B grade. You can maybe get into the B+ territory when you get an A+ and an A and a B+ in your first 4 or 5 picks. But I think Curtis Rourke and I think Nicholas Martin really dragged the class down simply based on need and positional value at the pick. Again, those players could become something. This is not an indictment on any of the players of the team of the draft class, but positional value matters. Was it a need? Was it a reach? Did it make sense? Were there better players on the board behind them? I think in some cases there certainly were, but tell me down below, what is your 2025 San Francisco NFL draft grades, Go ahead and follow us on social media at 49ers_X. That is the X for Twitter. 49ers 49ersaccess is the Instagram. Don't forget to use that promo code 49ersaccess, 49ERSACCESS at SeatGeek.com and save yourself $20 off your first purchase. But down below, tell me your draft grades. Do you agree with me? Do you think I'm crazy? And as always, until next time, my name is Sterling Bennett. Remind you to like, share, subscribe, leave us that 5-star audio podcast review, and stay faithful.